Just days before the end of the year, developments are unfolding at a rapid pace in Washington. President Trump forced out Secretary of Defense James Mattis today, 2 months earlier than planned. The abrupt exit comes 4 days after the general resigned in protest over the president's decision to pull all U.S. troops out of Syria. A second national security official stepped down for the same reason. It's all happening against the backdrop of a partial government shutdown, which could last into the new year. We begin our coverage tonight with our Major Garrett in Washington.
President Trump on Twitter confirmed another holiday season hair-trigger decision, firing Defense Secretary James Mattis nearly 2 months ahead of his announced resignation date. The president's tweet didn't even mention Mattis, saying only Deputy Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan will take over as acting Defense Secretary on New Year's Day. Mr. Trump did say Shanahan will be great, even though the former Boeing executive possesses none of Mattis's 4-star military experience or bipartisan approval as a national security strategist. Mattis resigned Thursday and, in coordination with the president, announced a February 28th departure date. His resignation letter questioned the president's commitment to U.S. allies and said the 2-month transition was necessary to guarantee the department's interests are properly articulated and protected in testimony before Congress and at the NATO Defense Ministerial meeting in February. Turmoil at the Pentagon, consistent with the turmoil triggered by the partial government shutdown, now sure to last past Christmas and possibly into early 2019.
This is what Washington looks like when you have a president who refuses to sort of go along to get along.
Budget Director Mick Mulvaney, due to become White House Chief of Staff on January 2nd, said roughly 400,000 furloughed federal workers will receive their last paycheck of the year on Friday. But after that,
it's very possible that the shutdown will go beyond the 28th and into the new Congress.
Congress convenes January 3rd. A new Democratic majority will rule the House, reducing White House leverage in the shutdown-centered dispute over the president's $5 billion demand for a steel slat barrier on the southern border, of the kind he recently showed on Twitter.
This is a made-up fight, so the president can look like he's fighting.
Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Bob Corker said the president could have had billions more for border security, but would not tie it to providing a path to citizenship for children who came to America with their undocumented parents, the so-called Dreamers.
This is something that is unnecessary. It's a spectacle, and candidly, it's juvenile.
Senate Democrats originally offered $1.6 billion for border security, but cut it to $1.3 billion as the shutdown, which the president said a week ago he would proudly own, dawned.
He says it's an issue of border security. I think we know better. It's an issue of his own political insecurity.
That's a reference to the president's reversal midweek last week from accepting a short-term funding bill to keep the government operating until early February, one that did not include border wall funding. An onslaught of criticism from the hard right ensued, and the president buckled. Mr. Trump now finds himself hunkered down here instead of his Florida golf club, suffering through a shutdown Christmas with no immediate end in sight. Elaine?
All right, thank you, Major.